Hey, Dillon, how are you?
Good, Ollie. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today. And I hope people can learn from your experience and the way you have been providing services in the Amazon businesses and relevant spaces. I do have put together some questions for you, and I'll start throwing at you one by one
Sure.
and see how we can go ahead. First of all, of course, I would like the audience to know more about you, probably maybe a
Mhm.
little brief introduction of how your experience comes up. So if you can just tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I was a personal trainer for probably a little over a year, and was doing that while going back to school. I took a few years off to figure out what in the world I wanted to do, and still didn't have a clue at that time. But I was like, I'll go back to school. We'll figure it out. And I started doing FBA. I started doing retail arbitrage, right? Like most of us, like that's how a lot of Amazon sellers get started, right?
All
It's
of us.
RA or OA. And then you have this fork in the road, which we'll talk about because I definitely went through it as well. So the first phase for me was like, this sounds interesting. It's cool. I heard it on Pat Flynn's podcast, and I was like, I'll go buy some stuff at Target and Walmart in the States, and then I'll go sell it, right?
Great.
And it worked. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I proved to myself that this was a real thing. And I didn't plan on starting a business at this point. It was just kind of something to do on the weekends. It was fun. And at a certain point, the GM of the gym I was a trainer at, we kind of saw we didn't see eye to eye. That kind of came to be clear. So we parted ways, and I had a very tough decision to make. I had clients that were paying me through the gym that were like, hey, we'll go anywhere you want. And I could have done the at-home thing, training in their homes, my home, could have opened up my own gym. And it's not really something I wanted. I really wanted something more scalable, right? When you're getting paid for portions of your time, the only way to make more money is to literally charge more money. And it was kind of weird, right? Because these are people you have relationships with. So it's hard to go and say, hey, it's not going to be $60 an hour. Now it's 120. So I said, you know what? I'm going to burn the bridges here. Sorry. I'm not going to continue being a trainer, and I'm going to go pursue this Amazon thing. And I did that. And I worked tons of hours doing the RA thing. And that was cool, barely pay the bills. I got to continue existing as a human. So that was nice, especially while in school, and realize, again, my time doesn't scale. And I didn't want to build a team. I was like 19, 20 at the time.
Mhm.
So the next most scalable thing for me was online arbitrage, right? So it's like, cool, I can do this at home. I
Exactly.
at least don't have to drive around, pack up my truck with a bunch of products. And so that was cool. So I did that for a while. Um, and again, just hit a plateau where I was like, I need something more scalable.
Mhm.
And this is the big fork that I think a lot of sellers get to. You realize I have a business and it's paying the bills, and that's cool, but I want something more. I really want to have this thing evolve, right?
Mhm.
And so you hit a fork in the road where you can either go the private label route or the wholesale route.
Right.
Neither one is better than the other, but they are different. Private label, in my mind, granted, I've never done it, but it's a lot of upfront cash and not a lot of cash flow until it's doing super well, right? A lot of
True.
reinvesting back into it, right? Because you're building a brand at the end of the day. That's a bigger deal. Wholesale, on the other hand, yeah, it requires more capital. But if you already have a business, you have some capital and it doesn't require a ton. And the risk factor for every dollar you're investing into inventory is vastly different with wholesale than it is with private label, right? Private label is really you making a very strong bet with no data. Like
Yeah.
you could say all day long, well, the competition's doing X. Competition has nothing to do with you, right?
True.
Whereas with wholesale, I can look at a listing and I can tell you exactly how it's doing. And if I were to jump on that listing, there's a change that's occurring. I can calculate pretty accurately what that change is going to be. And if I can go get pricing, I know what my profitability is going to be day one.
Yeah.
And right. So for me, I was like, you know what? I need cash flow right now. That's what I wanted. I wasn't worried about building a big business that I could then exit. Private label brands are great for selling later down the line for a nice multiple of revenue. But for wholesale, I'm like, I just want cash flow. Like, I just want to not go get a job. And that's the route I went. And I backed myself in a corner. I said, RA, OA, that's paying the bills, but wholesale is where I need to go. And it was a lot to learn. It was very tough. And it was 4 months of me just figuring things out the hard way.
Yeah.
And I made a pact with myself that I wasn't allowed to spend money unless it was on a wholesale order. Even though I had profitable RA and OA items available to me, I said, no, I need to figure this out, right? Because that was the easy way. And that was tough. So I did that, ended up getting out of a toxic relationship, which that was the biggest enabler for me succeeding with that business. Because it was tough, man. It was very tough. I was also a full-time student at the same time, right?
Oh,
so
really?
so full-time finance student. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to spend on the business. It was like 4 hours a day, realistically. And so I got to a point where I just knew the growth levers to pull and the blockers to get rid of. And we could talk about those things. And I started to do pretty well. I didn't scale it to a huge operation. Part of the reason for that is we actually started the software company. And again, I'm all about scale, right? So I'm like, what's more scalable than software? Not a whole lot, if we're being honest. So I actually made a tough decision to shut down my Amazon business, which was profitable, to go into software. Yeah. So there's this like recurring thing in my life where, something gets me to the next step or the next few steps. But the thing that's going to take me even further is something completely different. Right. And I think that's an important thing to consider in the Amazon space, right? If you're getting into this as a first-time business owner, this could be the end all be all for you. And that's awesome. Yeah. But it could just be the starting point. There's so much opportunity just in this industry, in this space alone, that use it as a sandbox, use it as a way to understand business, how to operate a business, how to grow a business, like how to hire and manage a team. And then once you have those skill sets, now the opportunities that are available to you that you can realistically do are much greater. And you can say, I want to do something else, right? I've always wanted to run a software company. Great, go do that. Or it's, hey, I want to build a massive Amazon business and we're going to sell. Great, go do that. So that's kind of where I'm at now. We're 3 or 4 years into the software company, just going full out, just, hauling butt in terms of pace. We have our own office, which I'm in right here. So I've done a lot. That's kind of my high level Amazon journey, if you will.
Yeah, I agree. So that's good to hear. So are you telling me that you no longer sell yourself on Amazon?
Yeah. So that was a tough decision. I actually had a few people tell me I was an idiot for doing that. Understandably so. But my bet was, within the first year of running the software business, we would do more in revenue than I was able to do after a handful of years being an Amazon seller. And that was correct. So it's, again, tough decisions, man. A lot of people don't like hearing that kind of stuff, right? It's very much like, wait, you're not going to sell on Amazon anymore. What does that mean? Nothing. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work anymore. Listen, I still have friends that do it. I still consult every now and then with people getting started. I think for me, it's understanding what you want. There is no right or wrong business model. What do you want? Right. For me, I wanted to build a software company and I had that opportunity. I'm like, hey, let's go. This is it, man. Still in the space, still understand it pretty heavily. Like I said, I consult. I've had the Wholesale Made Easy podcast. I do, stuff like this every now and then. So still relatively speaking in the industry and see kind of what's going on. But yeah, fully focused on the software side now.
That's good to hear. And that's great, actually. I mean, I have spent over 16 years in the development or programming or software sector. And my experience, I started all the way from Pakistan, and then I moved to Malaysia and then LA. So yeah, I know it actually helps you. I think some people have this in their gene. So they have this programming or software kind of stuff in their inside.
Yeah.
So they just want to do it. I mean, it doesn't matter to them. Either it's making money or no. I think it's just they want to do it. And then once the product is ready, then they would think, okay, now how do I sell? Sometimes, I mean, I was actually not that kind of educated. So I would think, okay, I have produced something. Now this works perfectly fine. Okay, now how do I sell it? because I'm a
Mhm.
programmer. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a marketing guy, so I don't know how to sell it. Then I would have to figure out, okay, now we have to hire these kind of services or the people. It's just, I have heard about your softwares,
Mhm.
especially Go Aura, a
Yep.
repricing thing. I have seen a lot of blogs as well, the articles where the comparison is provided with
Mhm.
different market softwares. So I think I haven't personally used it, but I would love to give it a try.
Oh
And
yeah, we'll get you sorted out.
yeah,
Don't worry.
for sure. So because, as I said, we now have a lot of active Amazon sellers and partnerships
Mhm.
that's being processed through handled through our network. So I think these kinds of software really help people automate a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to pricing to
Yeah.
compete and beat the other sellers. It's very, very important in Amazon selling business.
Yeah, there's something I want to touch on that kind of links this whole theme. You're talking about like this mindset, right? The programming stuff.
Yeah.
Really, all we're talking about is systems thinking and logic, right?
Yeah.
Um, Funny enough, so I'm not technical. I'm not a
Right.
coder. I'm not a programmer. Not an engineer. I can do some Python programming, but that's besides the point. For me, what I learned with the Amazon business for me was an opportunity to learn a lot. I had tried to start a few businesses before and that just completely failed because I had no idea what I was doing.
Mhm.
And finally, with the Amazon business, I took the time to learn. I didn't just assume I should know this. I go, I know nothing. Let me go figure it out. And let me take the time, right? Like not hold myself to unrealistic expectations of like it should succeed year one. It's like maybe not. I don't know. For me, it comes down to some interesting questions, right? Like, who do I need to become? What skills do I need to have? What knowledge do I need to have to accomplish these goals? And then go and get those things, right? These are
Yeah.
not things that we're taught of or taught to as children, right? Even as adults, we're not really taught this stuff. So for
Nobody.
me, there's a few books that really helped, like Work the System by Sam Carpenter. And it's free on his site. I think it's workthesystem.com. Where he talks about he bought this telecoms company in Oregon, and just it was shambles. Nothing was written down. Nobody had a clue of how to get certain. Like he's working crazy hours. He's a single dad, like with sole custody. I mean,
Wow.
he's sleeping like 2 hours a night. Like it's not sustainable, right?
Mhm.
And then he realizes, oh, what we need are systems, predictable, standardized systems. How do we do certain things, even the little things, right? Like how do we clean the bathroom? Like that kind of thing matters. And that really taught me, oh, what I'm not doing is spending the time to work on the business. A lot of people say work on the business, not in the business. Okay, but what does that mean? Like really, like how do you execute on that knowledge? You don't. What it really means is when you're the solar or this I'm sorry, this solo founder, right? It's just you. There's no team, no employees.
Right.
You're doing all of the work.
True.
But what you need to get good at doing is reworking the work, is actually optimizing how you do certain things, right? Let's look at a wholesale Amazon business. It's actually very simplistic. You
True.
source products, you buy and list those, rinse and repeat.
Correct.
Now, there's a lot that goes in there. I'm very much simplifying things here,
Yeah.
but let's break each of those down into a system. Sourcing. How do you find new brands and products to
Yeah.
carry? Let's go deeper. How do you research them? How do you reach out to them? How do you get approved? Do you know what your conversion rates are when you reach out? Right? Like, do you get a better conversion rate if you email them or if you call them? I realized I got 4 times the conversion rate when I called instead of emailed,
True.
which went completely against everything I was taught in these courses and stuff like that, which was send 400 emails a day. It sounds scalable, but guys, it's not effective, right? You have efficiency and effectiveness.
Right.
If you miss effectiveness, you are efficiently ineffective.
True.
Effectiveness comes before efficiency. So you need to slow down sometimes, right? For me, it was understanding, okay, if I lay everything out as a system, this could be on a piece of paper, drawing, whiteboard, it doesn't matter, whatever works for you to visualize all the moving pieces.
Right.
Then you say, okay, within this subsystem, which is my business, what's the what's the part that I'm missing out on the most, or has the most room for improvement, right? It might be, I do everything else really great. I can find suppliers all day long. It's really like, I'm not getting approved at a high enough rate. Okay, why? Let's go learn that. That's sales. Okay, so if I practice and read about cold calling and how to handle objections, maybe I can put together a process that increases my approval rates. If for every 10 suppliers you call, you only get approved for 2,
Right.
what happens when we take it from 2 to 4? Now your 6-month goals just became a 3-month goal with that one tweak. And what we want to do is we want to do that over and over and over again. We're going to zoom into the business in one area, fix whatever's broken, or just enhance whatever is working but could be working better, and rinse and repeat. Right. So take a day out of your week and do just that. Sure. All the other things are relatively simple, right? But here's what's cool. When you get to that point, you have a very optimized business. So one, it doesn't require as much of your time. It's very predictable. But because you have things written down, you have operations. You can go hire somebody. You can now say, hey, I'm going to go hire somebody to own sourcing so that I can focus on other areas of the business. Right. But what you're not doing is hiring somebody and saying, figure it out. I have no idea. No. The playbook is written. They're teed up for success. Right. Because you went through the motions, you went through the action of determining what makes that successful and what doesn't make it successful. When you get to that point, you transition from building a business to a company. Those two things are very different. And with the software company, once I made that transition, because with the Amazon business, it was just me. I had a VA every now and then that would help out. But I learned, okay, in order for this to scale, I need underlying foundations to enable that to happen. And that's on me. So with the software company, the reason why we grew so quickly is that mentality. How do we do every single thing? And a lot of things, when you first jump into it, you have no clue as a business owner, but that's your job, right? Your role as the founder is to say, I need this thing done. I've never done it. Don't know anybody who has. Let me go figure it out. Take it from 0 to 80%, prove that it works, make sure it's all good, and then go hire somebody to take it from 80 to 100%. Right. And then go rinse and repeat. Yes. It's a totally different mentality, right? But nobody's taught these kinds of things, right? So you have to have that systems mindset and view your business as a collection of systems. That's really what it is at the end of the day. And when you can view it that way and you have it clearly in your mind, you can make certain tweaks in your favor. And that gets very exciting.
Great stuff. Thank you so much. I mean, I'm learning a lot of things from you. So it's just, while you are talking, I was also making some notes, even though this is being recorded, but it's just, for me, I'm addicted to making notes. It's
same. I'm the same.
Great. Yeah, it helps actually, when you are learning something and you want to recall everything, it just helps. I believe you, as you have clarified already. So tell me something about we in Pakistan, especially because English is not our native language. Our native language is Urdu. However, I mean, I believe you can understand me pretty much clearly because I have already worked with a lot of Americans. I have lived there. I have worked for a long time in this industry. But many people in Pakistan, they have it's challenging for them to speak over the phone with the brands and their representatives or people. And I believe it's just human. I mean, it's a psychology, I would say. If you are talking to me and if I don't understand you very well, I would feel maybe I would consider you rude at me, or I would just hang up on you if this is a first time call.
Sure.
That sometimes happen with some of the new sellers. And I mean, they face this kind of challenge. So I'm just trying to ask you, what do you think? What would you suggest? I mean, we do a lot of emails. I have given a lot of templates. It's just they keep copying and pasting. Some of them think out of the box, they customize it. But still, emails do not, I agree to you completely that emails do not, I mean, calls have much higher rate of conversion, or at least getting a response compared to emails. So what do you think would be the best strategy in case for Pakistani sellers?
Yeah, it's a good question. Obviously, I haven't experienced that myself, so I'm coming at this from just a few assumptions. The only thing I have that I can relate it to is being young, right? So in the US, being young is like, you don't matter in business. It's very much like you're untested, you have no experience, like, right? Who do you think you are, kind of a thing, right? Prove yourself. So in calling these brands, granted, they don't actually know my age, right? But at that time, I don't sound like a grown man on the phone, and I don't know what I'm talking about. I have no freaking clue, right? So I think where my mind's going with this question is, it's not the call itself. It's understanding that at the end of the day, wholesale on Amazon is vastly different than every other business model on Amazon that is reselling. Why? RA and OA is transactional. There's no relationship, right? Exactly. There's no, I need to know you, you need to know me. There's a level of trust here. It's just buy my stuff and resell it. I don't even know about it if I'm the retailer, right? Yeah. Private label, a little bit different because you're working with factories most of the time. There's a relationship, but you're in the power seat, right? Because you have the capital and people want your business. Right. Wholesale is different. You're not in the power seat a lot of the times, right? So you're coming to these conversations with a perception of not a lot to offer. Money used to be enough. It used to be enough to call a brand and be like, hey, I can spend 10 grand with you right now. Let's go. Now everybody can do that. There's capital everywhere, and that's tough, right? So the uniqueness of making those calls back in the day, like let's say, 5 to 7 years ago, was money. I can give you money now. Great. Now it comes down to actual relationship building, which takes time. This does not mean that you make a phone call, they go, yeah, sounds great, here's our price list, you're approved, we're all good here. No, call them 4 or 5 times, follow up. Here's the cool thing about wholesale. You don't need hundreds of accounts. True. You don't. You can do $500,000 with 10 SKUs across 3 companies. 3 brands. That's not a lot, right? So when people are like, I send 400 emails a day, I'm like, slow down, man. Like, I can take that one list, one day of your effort, and turn that into $1 million business. Awesome. Why though? It's because it's that follow-up. I mean, one of the people I used to work with, she not work, together in business, but like she was getting started with wholesale. She followed up with this brand for a year before getting approved. Really? And provided value every 2 weeks, not just like, hey, just checking in. Was literally like, hey, this is what I would do. Here's how to do it. If you guys want to do it yourself, good luck. Like, happy to help if you guys need it. And after a year, they got fed up with the current Amazon sellers and called her and were like, hey, everybody's off. Do you want exclusive rights? She's like, yes, sounds good. Awesome. It took a year. It's insane. Nobody does that, right? But you should. So for me, it's like, what are the things that fundamentally, from a business principles standpoint, makes sense that Amazon sellers are not doing? Because let's be honest, a lot of Amazon sellers getting started have never run businesses before. So a lot of the times you're not following business principles. You're following what somebody who's an Amazon seller who also doesn't follow business principles told you to do. We're not thinking for ourselves a lot of times here. Sometimes it's like, if you just critically think about this, like, what makes sense? You're like, oh, wait, that makes no sense. Like, why are we doing this? Like the email thing for me, I was like, wait, why? Like, even the math tells you it's wrong, right? So a lot of the things that end up working in the Amazon space are counterintuitive. It's just, we're not thinking about it from a foundational perspective. So for me, yeah, is there going to be a language barrier? Probably. But are you approaching the conversation as, I'm trying to sell you right now? Or are you trying to build a relationship? How you approach the relationship matters far more than how you sound on the phone. Agreed. A lot of the times in sales, you're not selling the person, you're asking them questions. Right. And they're selling themselves. You're getting them to see the value themselves and then being like, yeah, this sounds actually pretty awesome. Let's have a conversation now. So the transition I made was not me trying to convince a brand to let me carry them. It was actually me asking them questions. Hey, how's everything going? Like, how do you guys approach X, Y, and Z? And having them see themselves the opportunity that exists, and me, through asking the right questions, being able to position myself as an expert. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm just asking good questions, right? Are you happy with the number of sellers on there right now? What's the biggest issue? If somebody's like, we hate Amazon sellers, why? What's the biggest thing here, right? And what's great is when you ask why a lot, even if you don't get the account, they're telling you what is wrong. And you go and build a business that does it right.
True.
So when I talked to them, a lot of the objections were they hardcore negotiate and then place very small orders. They want 50% off and then place $100 order. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. That's kind of rude, actually, right? They don't communicate. They don't want to jump on the phone and build a relationship with me. All they want to do is send me emails. Imagine that. They break map all the time. Great. How do we help with that, right? How do we become an ally to your brand, not just a buyer? So the fundamental problem here with Amazon wholesale is that people approach it as being transactional when truly it's relationship based. And so you got to transition the entire perspective you have on approaching these brands, because it's not just give me a price sheet, let me place an order. No. There's a lot more that needs to take place before that, because you're not worried about that one transaction. You're trying to find brands and relationships that work for the next year plus. Right. Which means we don't need a huge high volume. I've talked with a few Amazon sellers that do wholesale differently, and they go, no, we place, orders, and when it doesn't work, we just leave. I'm like, okay, but what's your churn rate for accounts? As in, you open the account, you place an order, and then you never place an order ever again. It was like 60, 70%.
Yes.
It's like, how does that make sense? That's actually not even worth your time. I'd rather get rid of those and find the small, the 10% of all that exists that I can carry for the next 2 to 3 years and work together. Here's what's cool, right? When they go, hey guys, we want to launch on Walmart.com and we don't want to own it. We actually want a partner to own it. Do you want to do that and be exclusive? Absolutely. Right. But you have to have that relationship to be offered those kinds of things. And I've been in those positions where I've had one of my brands call me and there's a SKU I was not allowed to carry because an Amazon seller bought so much of it, tanked the price, and jacked up the seller rank for it. And so they're just waiting for him to move out of that inventory. And when that started to occur, I was contacted. They're like, hey, do you want first dibs at this? It's yours if you want it. Yeah, I do actually, because it's profitable, right? You got to think long-term with this kind of business. So don't worry necessarily about the language barrier. It's going to exist, right? You can't change that. I guess for me, it's like, what can you change and what can't you change, right? I think if you're just approaching this as a person-to-person thing and you're getting to know the person you're talking to, that changes the context of the conversation. Get to know that person, right? What's that person's name? If you're calling a sales rep, great, get to know them, right? Where are they located? What are they into? One of the things I used to do when I would call a brand and I could tell they were kind of defensive, they weren't really open to having a real conversation with me. They could be having a hard day, right? I would try to make them laugh. That was like my first goal, make them laugh, even just a little chuckle. And some people are easy, some people are tough. So the tough people, I would literally drop my phone on the carpet so they could hear it, pick it back up, like, I'm so sorry, I literally just fell down the stairs. Like I obviously need more coffee, right? But see, you just laughed. But that's the point, right? It's like I'm showing humility that I'm a person, and now we're communicating as humanity, right? It's not a business transaction anymore. And now they're like, dude, I know today's been so rough. Let's go, right? You want to get to that level, right? It's like first in that conversation is like get to know the person, get that person open-minded. A lot of times when you call somebody, they're having a tough day, has nothing to do with you, but your chances of succeeding, of getting that account could be like a third, could be a quarter of what it could be. You get them to laugh. You're like, all right, this guy's actually pretty funny. This is cool. What's up, man? How can I help you? Here's why I called.
Cool.
Easy.
Amazing. That's a great tip, actually. So I would quickly just tell you what we do. I mean, of course,
Yeah, please.
we don't do it this way. I mean, we try, but not this kind of a stuff. And this is really amazing stuff. I think that will be very helpful for people if they apply exactly all these kind of strategies. So what we do, when there is a brand or the listings that need, for private label, you are taught that find the problems in the competitor. So in the competitor's listing or the product. So we find the product in the brands. We find the problems in the brand's listings and their products. And then we put together a report, and we put out, for example, customer negative reviews, or that title problem, the images problem, the description, stuff like that. So once we know that the brand is interested in discussing more, then we send over this report to them and tell them, we try to explain how we can help you improving all this stuff. It is probably a service, but we do it for free as long as we see the brand being interested in working with us. So this is one of the things that we do. And of course, the better we communicate, the better results we are going to get.
Yeah. I love that, because I used to do something similar. I had a one pager, which was not to that extent, but it was just like a high level, like, hey, here's kind of my thoughts. Here's what I would do. I didn't charge for that either. For me at the time, it was a value add, right? It was like, yeah, I'm going to give you money, but so can everybody else. Here's also what I'm going to do for you guys. And I don't charge for that. It's just, if we can make more money together, I want to, right? Here's the thing about delivering that's super important in my mind. Because it's such a sales tactic that is used of like, hey, here's a free report, but like, there's kind of this expectation of like a response, and right. Like a lot of people will receive that and be like, this is probably going to open up a door. Right. So maybe I'm not even going to respond to this email. Here's the trick. You start with the phone call. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to send them an email, see if they're interested, and then phone call. Sounds great in theory. The problem there is the people that wouldn't respond to your email because it's super easy to just delete it, that would also actually respond via phone call and have a real conversation with you, is still high. Like, so you're missing out potentially on a lot of brands. So what I did, I would have that phone call, completely cold, no setup, nothing, just call them. Hey, here's what's going on, right? We go through the whole spiel, make them laugh, all that good stuff. And I would let them know, like, hey, I'm going to send this over to you. I just do this with every brand that we want to carry. That way we have a general idea of like strategy behind like what we want to do. Cause we don't just buy and sell like that. Honestly, like that doesn't make sense to us. Like, we're looking for brands that we can start to partner and work with, but also grow over time. Why am I saying this though? If you're talking to a business owner, this is super important. They don't care about the 10 grand you're going to give them right now, because anybody else can do that, right? They're like, how are you going to increase the size of the pie, not further slice it? So I need to let them know my strategy here is not to just buy and sell with the volume that already exists. My point is to increase the volume. But like, why would I want to do that? What's my incentive? Well, I don't want to carry a brand that I can only work with for the next 1 to 2 months. It doesn't help me build a business, right? What I really want is to bring on a brand that, let's say month 1, I can do 30 units a month, right? Like consistent, nice and easy. But in the next 12 months, I want to get to a point where I'm doing 200-300 units a month. Why? I'm making more money, right? And if I'm owning that, that's fantastic. So I let them know, hey, my position here is not to just be a buyer. It's really to be a partner. I'm going to share information with you guys, right? If I'm testing PPC campaigns and I'm seeing keywords do super well, and I think you guys could use that on other platforms or even just Google Ads, I'm gonna give you that. I'm gonna let you know, hey, this is working super well, guys. Like, not sure if you're using it anywhere else, just wanted to help. Right. So whenever you're sending this free stuff, you really got to position it as like, there's no expectation. Like, hey, even if it doesn't work out, no big deal. Like, this is what we would do. Like, just want your team to have it. Obviously we're happy to work with you guys, but if not, it's really not a big deal. You guys have it and take off and run with it. Easy. No expectations, but you're using the law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Right. I just gave you a bunch of value. So now you're like, all right, we'll take a look here.
I agree. So yeah, we do face this kind of problems, especially I mean the challenges, not a problem, I would say challenge. So
Mhm.
I think there are female students, so many female students who are
Mhm.
actually very fluent in English. They can
Mhm.
speak very well. So I have seen this comparison, I mean, the ratio of those people being able to create more brand accounts with successfully compared to the other
Mhm.
ones who are having this language barrier or I mean, I'm saying language barrier, but I agree to you. It's not just a language barrier. It could be the way you communicate. So
Yeah.
communication skills, I believe, are required in this whole business. And this whole business, the wholesale business, relies on how well you communicate with people and build relationships. Do you prefer to work with brands or have you focused on distributors as well? What is your
Yeah.
preference?
Yeah, my preference is working directly with brands. Um, Distributors, there's nothing wrong with it, and I've worked with a few. There's a few brands where the way their structure worked is they sold to 3 regional distributors, and then everybody else had to go through them. It didn't matter who you were, brick and mortar, it didn't matter. So that was okay. That actually worked pretty well, but I still built a good relationship with the distributor. I'm sorry. Um, that's not to say one's right, one's wrong. It's just different, right? If you want to carry like brand name, household name kind of things, you're going to have to go distributor, right? Because a lot of these big companies are just not going to sell to you. For me, the sweet spot that I found was working with established brands, but not necessarily like super established brand, right? There's a sweet spot between they're known enough to have enough volume organically, like in terms of demand, but not so big that
Mhm.
they're not going to take my phone call.
Right.
Right. So I'm trying to find that sweet spot. I still want to talk to like the business owner or like the head of sales or something like that. Like it's not a like the teams are probably like the entire company is probably less than 20 people, maybe
Mhm.
even less than 10 now because things are a little bit more efficient. If I can do that, I can do pretty well. There's a lot of opportunity in testing things with that type of brand, right? When you have a brand name, listing that you're carrying, PPC is kind of out the door. Listing optimization is probably already done, right? So there's not a whole lot of opportunity here. But for like, I used to carry this very small company. The guy worked out of his garage, but did like super well. And he made like humidifiers. Sorry, humidifiers. Been a long day. Humidifiers for like guitars and ukuleles, right? So super small things.
Mhm.
Um, Tons of demand. There were people searching for his product for specific models,
Mhm.
right? So I could use PPC, do super well with it. There's another one I used to carry. It was a grill thermometer, sold retail for like $329.95. Yeah, it was MAP. Did super well. Wholesale pricing was like $116. I think I netted like $55 per unit.
Wow.
So like organically, I can move like 20 units per month, but I can do PPC,
Mhm.
spend $5 to get an additional sale.
Right.
That's without listing optimization, without any of that extra
Mhm.
stuff, right? So for me, I'm not necessarily just looking at like how great is it now. I'm like, yeah, it's got to be a minimum of greatness, right? It's got to do at least $4 per unit in net profit, at least $30 gross um, ROI. It's got to move at least 30 units per month organically with me jumping on the listing. It can't be sold by Amazon. I don't like to compete with Amazon. If it's hitting those things, like that's my minimum threshold. But then I'm looking at what could be done here that
Mhm.
would just immediately make it a success, right? Because again, this is a relationship. If
Right.
I can jump on and listen, a lot of Amazon sellers are lazy. This is just the world we live in.
Same here.
Right. So if you could just be a little bit more, work centric, um, you'll jump onto a listing where there's 8 other Amazon sellers that they have relationships with. And month 1, month 2, they're like, what are you doing that they're not? And you just
Mhm.
straight up tell them, here's exactly what I'm doing. And there's a lot of strategies there, right? Like there's strategies that I don't, I've been kind of low key promoting, but I haven't seen anybody take action on. We know there are FBA like affiliate sites, right? Like people rank on Google or Google for certain keywords like best grill thermometer, right? And these are just literal links to Amazon listings.
Yes.
Sales are occurring there, right? So if you sell a grill thermometer, contact that site owner, be like, hey, could you place my listing at position 2, because it's not even there, you get more, you can calculate it, you get more commission because mine sells for $329. The one at number 2 right now sells for $116. You'll literally make more money per sale.
Great.
And just swap it out. It doesn't have to cost you any money, right? But you might have just added an additional 30 units per month just from that one thing. Now go do it 4 or 5 more times, right? So there's strategies that exist that nobody's doing with wholesale.
That's a great tip. Another one.
Yeah. Right. There's so much here, man. Right. So you can't just look at where's it at now. Yeah, that's important. But the second phase there is where could it be and what could I be doing? Right. You could build a small team where all they do is just that.
Yeah, yes, you're right. And I do see there's a lot of opportunities and strategies to improve. The thing I see here with me, especially when I'm dealing with a lot of suppliers and products, what happens is, for example, if I have dealt with a supplier 2 months ago, probably I received the price list and I didn't get any product at that time. What happens is that supplier goes down in my list. I wouldn't care looking at him again or following up again. And I forget, okay, at that time he didn't have the products, but who knows, now they got some new products or new stock, new SKUs.
Yeah.
So this is something I still preach to my students and the members, that they always have to follow up, even if they did not get any good products potential at that time, right in the beginning. Check with them back probably after a month or 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's just you never know from where you are getting more products or opportunities. So yeah, there is a lot of. And this tip affiliate thing, it's amazing. I'm definitely going to.
I can see you're like, oh wait, hold on, I got to do something with this.
Of course.
Yeah. No, following up is incredibly important. It does not matter what you're doing. Like we're building something kind of brand new right now, and to get like beta users and stuff, it's like, yeah, it's a lot of following up. I mean, that's how you make anything work. It's funny. I did a test the other day. We sent an email out for something, and we got a handful of people. I was like, all right, cool. And nobody thought about sending a follow-up. I'm like, no, we're sending a follow-up. And we got like half of the original list, added to the new one. So it's like, come on, we just increased that by 50% with one additional email, which was just like, hey, just wanted to make sure you got this, like all good here. So like, I use Superhuman for my email client. It doesn't matter what you use, but I have, saved responses and templates for following up. I'll send you an email. And I'll say, if Ollie hasn't responded in 4 days, resurface it back in my email. I'll jump in there if you haven't responded, and I'll send you a follow-up email. And it's pre-filled, right? It's like, it doesn't take much time, right? But most of the time people are like, yeah, it just, I completely forgot about it. It got pushed down my list. I appreciate you bringing it back up because I would have forgotten.
Yes. Exactly.
Sometimes you got to follow up like 4 or 5 times, but it always ends up being worth it.
Yeah, of course, we have to do it. Would you like to suggest any niches or categories that either we should go or we should not go?
Sure. I never recommend categories because I think people get a little too stuck on that idea. And what ends up happening is it's a tragedy of the commons, meaning if I recommend grocery or, sports and outdoors, if I recommend sports and outdoors, everybody's like, great, that's where we go. And then every brand in sports and outdoors gets inundated with a ton of emails, right? So to me, it's not that one category is better than the other. There are certain categories I tend to avoid, like obviously books, media, CDs, jewelry, I tend to avoid. That's about it. I mean, for me, to be honest, I jump around. I mean, I carried baby tooth album books, like books where people would put their kids' baby tooth or teeth in them, right? Next to grill thermometers. Right. So like for me, I traverse the entire thing. I think, however, with it, one caveat is like, if you find yourself doing well in a category, I would say double down on that, like go deeper, because what's great is let's look at the affiliate strategy I was talking about, right? If you get really good at building relationships with these site owners, and let's say they're all in like outdoor grilling, and the value you get from having one SKU or one brand in that category is great. but have 2 or 3 more, that's a big deal, right? Because now I can go to that same site owner and say, hey, yeah, you helped me out on the grill thermometer. I also have grill brushes. Guarantee you they have a site or a link that they are ranking, or page, I'm sorry, that they are ranking just for grill brushes.
Yes.
And you'd be like, hey, go swap me out for number 2. And because you already have that relationship and it's worked out so far, they're probably going to be like, yeah, it's not a big deal. As long as the math worked out for me and I'm not losing anything by making that decision, not a problem. So what ends up happening is a lot of the value you can provide in the long run to brands when you're talking with a new brand in that category is, hey, yeah, everybody's going to give you money. Everybody's going to do listing optimization, and we're going to do that for you as well. But here's what we have that not everybody else has. We have relationships with brands that right now are pointing sales to your competition. I have relationships with every single one of them. We already work together. So number one, when we start carrying inventory, I'm getting a link switched out with ours, which means my buying power with you just went up dramatically. So you think I'm only going to move 30 units a month, but based on what I'm seeing, I'll realistically do 70. And they're like, there's no way. Let me run a test. Let me place one order. You don't have to even approve me for an account. Let me place one order. Let me do what I need to do. We'll follow up and we'll be good. Reduce the risk, right? Like just make it super no brainer, right? But again, this comes back to that relationship building stuff, right? It takes time. You're not just going to contact a site owner and be like, hey, can you swap number 2 for my thing? They're gonna be like, who the heck are you? Build a relationship. Be like, hey, here's what I do. Here's what I think would make sense. If I'm completely, out of bounds here, please just let me know. And they might come back and be like, hey, I'll do it if you pay me an extra $100 a month. Maybe worth it.
Correct.
Right? They might be like, hey, I won't switch it out for free, but if I'll switch it out, and if you pay me $20 to supplement, yeah, maybe this makes sense. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
You reminded me of a funny story. I'll just tell you quickly. So I made this video a long time ago, probably in 2019. I was creating a tutorial on-screen video of how to do product hunting. So I picked up this category of pet supplies. I wrote dog collar. And before doing that in the video, I said, okay, take this as an example. Just use your brain, think out of the box, go into different categories. You know what happens? So I created this video with, I was writing dog collar. Then there was a 3rd or 4th listing. I don't know, there was a popular brand name or something. So I opened that listing and I just did the analysis to tell people, do check this, check that, how to use ref seller, how to use Keepa, blah, blah, all that stuff. And then somebody comes to me after a few days, oh, sir, I can't find any more dog collars. I said, why? I mean, whoever I call to, the brands are already like, they are fed up. Well, I mean, they are frustrated. I said, why? Because the brand is telling me that before me, there were like 40 calls a day from people who are talking random English. They don't even speak English well. And I was like, seriously. And I received, you know what? And once I told them, somebody asked me, I have the same point of view, not telling the exact thing. So somebody asked me, sir, in which state should I make a company, LLC? I said, I made this mistake in 2019. I said, go for Wyoming. Okay, no problem. This was a video right in the group. The group is now bigger. Everybody is creating street. Okay, they are also using the same registered agent as well. Now,
oh my gosh.
That registered agent is so happy, is making a lot of money. But what happens is every time somebody picks up a phone, makes a phone call to a brand, tells them, hey, this is my company. I'm an Amazon seller. I'm calling from the state of Wyoming. Then the brand says, hey, wait, hold on. Are you calling from blah, blah street, Sheridan, Wyoming? So then the seller asks, ma'am, how do you know the full address? The ma'am says, because I receive 40 calls a day from different companies from the same address.
Oh my! It sounds so shady. I know, it's so funny. But you bring up a good point, right? It's like, it's not even just that. It's like even email templates. Like, listen, I love email templates, but guys, you got to change it some way, right? Like, because it takes no effort to do that. And what's so crazy is, yeah, they'll end up getting 500 emails a day and it's the same email. And they're like, no, none of you are getting the account now. Like literally none of you, even if it resembles the email, you're done. Right. So anytime somebody's like, oh, we tell everybody to do it this way, I'm like, good luck. Like it's not gonna scale, man. It breaks so
Agreed.
fast.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, I've seen that a few times.
What strategies you suggest for long-term employees or VAs retention? We have
Yeah,
this
that's a good
challenge.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was younger, I loved the VA route. It was so cool, right? It's like, oh, I got a VA. I've I've since gotten to, so when we started the software company, we were like, everything's going to be in-house. We had people telling us like, hey, you should be doing customer support. You should outsource that, blah, blah, blah. I heavily disagreed. I did it as the founder for the first 2 years by myself, like figured it out. I mean, it was the best thing I could have done. So I've learned that, yeah, it's easy to get a nice team of VAs, right? But man, having a full-time employee bought into what you are wanting to accomplish, your company goal, and wants to be a part of that, the level of ownership is so different. Like one full-time employee that truly wants to achieve what you want to achieve as well will outwork and outperform 5 VAs, in my opinion. Some people would disagree with me on that, and that's totally fine. But like, I've kind of done both, and we're a team of 6 now. And we went from 3 to 6 just in this past year. And
Amazing.
It's night and day. To have somebody truly own a portion of the business and be like, this is mine. I'm going to be the best performer here. I'm going to learn everything. Like there's something you miss with VAs. VAs, it's very easy to be like, go do X, Y, and Z, and here's the SOP.
Right.
When you hire somebody who becomes the expert in the thing you hired them to do, they start telling you, hey, here's how we need to do it, because they know more than you now.
Yes.
It's awesome, dude. Like, we have to get away from this idea of like, I'm the founder, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you start to build a team. It's like, no, man, like I've got people like Finn who does our support now. Like I trained him, and now he's like, I'll say something and be like, actually, I disagree. And like, here's why. I'm like, man, you're right. Like, let's do that. Right. So you miss out on that added knowledge. In terms of the long term, for me, granted, I'm still learning a lot here. So I'm definitely not an expert. I think it's just getting the right people. And if the person is bought into what you want to accomplish, they're motivated, right? So like, you don't need a ton of external motivation. If they have that internal motivation, it's totally different. And I think just treating people with respect, and just sometimes getting out of their way and being like, hey, you got this. Like, let me know if you need help, and being supportive, right? I mean, not every day is easy. Some days are just terrible. They're hard. Yes. And so I think to be empathetic and to realize when somebody's having a tough day and to pull them aside, like, hey, what's going on? Can I help? That's different, right? So when you support that person and they feel truly supported, like you'll step up and in for them, they're willing to go at bat for you, right? That's where you get loyalty to each other, right? It's not just one way, it's both ways. So I think that's just, again, a different way of operating. But when you have a VA that's across the world, you can't do a lot of that stuff, right? Sometimes and there's nothing wrong with having a remote company. Like, I'm super into it. Like, we're co-located here right now. But there is something to be said about just being able to look over at somebody's face and seeing that they're having a tough day.
Agree.
That's important. Yeah.
I think it's important to create bonding, a relationship with your team, especially the higher tier, the first tier that is actually working directly with you or any employer. I think there is a strong bonding is required. And I agree. I do the same things in order to, we are now actually overall a team of over 40 people, 40.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And
that's a lot.
Yes, there are. And we have about 12 offices across the country in all the different cities, the metropolitan, the major cities. So it's difficult to manage. There is a lot of challenges. but because I do have this strong bonding with the higher tier that is working directly with me. So pretty much I can say I do have trustworthy and loyal people across the board. So it really helps. And they
Nice.
are
Yeah.
blessings actually.
Oh, for sure.
So let's come to this point. So tell me about GoAura and how can I know it's a repricer, and I'm sure
Yep.
you guys have been adding more features and improving it. So I have personally used the other software like Informed, and one of my team members also uses Repricer Express or something like that, I think.
Yep. Sure.
So how we can, what's the difference? Just tell me everything about that you can say, tell me about GoAura.
Yeah, sure. So first I'll kind of explain what repricing is for those that don't know. Because when I was a seller, it was like cool, but it seemed like way too advanced for me for a while, which is kind of funny because now it's like, no, that's not the case. And then I'll talk about the differences. So repricing, what does it do? It looks at your listings 24/7. And as a price changes, says, what do we need to do? And we'll calculate and push a price back. It'll update your price 24/7. Why does that matter? You have the buy box, right? We all know the buy box. If you're competing with other sellers, you need that buy box to get sales, right? So roughly 82% of organic sales come via the buy box. That's a lot, right? So if we're not there, we're not getting sales. So you might get a few, but it's not a ton. And you know as well as I do with an Amazon business, because it's so high in volume and high in capital requirements, we need to churn that inventory quick, right? A lot of sellers go, oh, well, I've been holding this inventory for 2 months. I'm like, that's terrible. You should have sold it in 2 to 3 weeks. Like super fast, right? We want a high churn rate here. Why? Well, that's compound, right? You can take a lower ROI for your money. Let's take 10 grand, right? You could spend 10 grand once in a month or twice in a month. Okay. Take that in. We're adding one compound there, right? So let's say I bought 10 grand worth of inventory. I sold it. I got 11,000 now. I redeploy the 11 and now I got, let's say 12.
Yes.
Okay. I could have made one additional by spending it one time or two, right? So for me, you can take a lower ROI, but a higher frequency of churn and make more money over time, right? I literally wrote an ebook back in the day. I think I called it 7-Figure Blueprint. And I broke down the math. And I actually didn't even do true compound interest because it was too outlandish for like 1 year. It was insane. Okay, so you want the buy box, but the simple fact is, like, especially as you're growing a business in the Amazon space, you don't have enough time or enough speed as a human being. I type fast and I can't do it to be able to keep up with price changes, right? You, even an average Amazon seller will experience within their account, like at least a few thousand price changes per minute. You can't keep up, right? And it's just not worth your time. So what a repricing tool does is it allows you to go in and create a strategy or use a pre-configured, a pre-built strategy and say, okay, here's what I want you to do. And then do that 24/7.
Right.
Immediate, instantaneous, right? The moment a price changes, receive that, calculate. If we need to make a price change, push it back and keep doing that, rinse and repeat. What's interesting we found is that if you go from no repricing tool to Aura, you're going to see a 30 to 40% increase in sales.
Wow.
That's common. That's very normal. If you're going from I would say a modern repricing tool, because there are some very like older ones that still exist. If you go from like a modern one to Aura, you're typically going to see like I'd say like a 10 to 20% increase in sales. It also depends on your strategy, right? And we're very opinionated with what makes sense here. This works for RA, OA, and wholesale, of course. So there's no differences there. Yes. Now, the differences between Aura and other repricing tools, the way we set up the company and like the things we wanted to be different, because we had used other repricing tools. We were Amazon sellers, right? So we're like, it's got to be different. But how? Well, one, certainly performance. I mean, that just comes to terms. That's just a basic requirement. For us, we kind of were sick of instant repricing at the time being so expensive, right? You can go a cheaper route. You can pay $25 a month and reprice once every 15 minutes. The problem with that, though, is you could have repriced 4 or 5 times in that same period of time. And I'm being slightly conservative. So you're missing a lot of opportunity. How many 15-minute blocks are in a 24-hour period? A lot. So it's a lot of missed opportunities for sales. So We want instant repricing. Number two is cost. I don't want to be the most expensive, but I also don't want to be the cheapest, right? When you're the cheapest, you can't afford to hire amazing people, right? You can't have good features. Like there's a lot that ends up hurting the company and therefore the user. Being super expensive, on the other hand, like, yeah, it sounds nice from the business's perspective, from our perspective, but we're not affordable enough, right? We're not approachable. It kind of signals to newer Amazon sellers that could get value from it that, hey, this isn't for you. This is for like higher level sellers. And that's just not true. So for us, we wanted to be the best value, right? So we want to offer the most features for the dollar amount you spend with us. And number three, like the very big one for me is customer support. And this kind of goes back to the whole outsourcing thing, right? For us, we don't outsource customer support.
Awesome.
It's not 24/7. I will say that immediately, but that's by design. However, our KPIs, our measurement for success for our our support team, which is really just Finn right now, is a average response time, a first response time within business hours, less than 10 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So right now you can jump onto Aura, be like, yo, what's up? In less than 10 minutes, you'll have Finn actually talking to you, be like, yeah, how can I help? What do you need? Right. And we want a satisfaction rating of 95% or greater. So not only do we have speed, we have quality. Brilliant. For us, it's not just about sending like, here's an FAQ. Sometimes it's that simple, right? If you're like, hey, what's the pricing? Here you go. Sometimes it's, hey, Aura did this thing and I'm not quite sure why. We'll jump into your account, look at your strategy settings and the listing, be like, oh, this is why it happened. Oh, that totally makes sense. I didn't think about it that way. Awesome. You can, and we have this happen all the time. We have newer sellers that are like, hey, I'm so busy right now. I work a full-time job. I'm trying to make this work. I just need Aura up and running and I need a strategy that you recommend and I need all my costs put in and all that stuff. And I just don't have the time. I've got 5 minutes. Great. Send me your costs. Tell me how you want the strategy to work and we'll go do it for you. Like we will literally create your account for you. Wow. So we do work, right? So for me, it's like, that's big, right? We've all jumped into Amazon tools that are advanced, that are kind of complex. And repricing can be that way. One, we try to make the web app, the actual interface, very simple and like friendly, so it's not like, oh my gosh. But for me, it's not feeling alone, right? Repricing is complex at a fundamental level, and I don't want a Amazon seller to jump into a tool that we built and be like, I have no idea what to do. And I have no idea of how to figure it out. Listen, we've run this company for a little over 4 years, I think now. We know repricing pretty well. Like we have the most data. Wow. So if you're like, I have no idea of what strategy to choose, ask us. We'll tell you exactly what will work for your situation. Because we know what works and what doesn't, right? We'll make recommendations. And if you're like, that sounds cool, can you just do it for me? Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'll add it to your account. I'll get it right. And, so that's super important. Another thing we built is called workflows. This was like my baby. I'm a huge automation guy. I realized that our repricing was really, really good. But as a user, every time you listed new inventory, new listings came in, you still had to log into Aura, tell Aura what strategy to use for that listing, toggle it on, all that stuff. I was like, I don't like that. I want to be able to basically tell Aura, here's how I want you to do it and just do it for me automatically.
Yes.
So we integrate with inventory labs, right? So we can automatically import your costs, which is super important. Your strategy, you can set it to automatically calculate a minimum and a maximum price.
Yes.
So Aura requires a strategy, at least a minimum price, because we don't want it to go to zero, and repricing toggled on for that listing. Because you can have some listings, active and some not. So what's great is with a workflow, which is basically just an automation rule, we have 2 triggers and 4 actions, right? You have time of day, and then you have new imported listing, which is super important. And then we have like a filter block. So you could say, do certain things with, listings that contain this in the SKU versus not. We have pause repricing, which you can say, hey, if it's midnight, take my price to my max, hold it there for 2 hours, and then go back to repricing as normal. We have set strategy and then enable or toggle repricing. You can enable it or disable it. So here's what's great. If you have a good strategy, which we can help you create, you're using Inventory Lab and it's integrated with Aura. The moment a new listing comes into Aura with the workflow, we'll set the strategy. will also toggle on repricing.
Wow.
It's not going to do anything quite yet, because then we're going to import the cost from Inventory Lab. When we do that, we're automatically going to set a min price, and now we're repricing for you.
Awesome.
You didn't do any of that. You just created one workflow, one strategy, and you have Inventory Lab integrated. And that takes like hardly any time.
Wow.
And that's like the base layer of what you can do here, right? There's so many other things that are more advanced you can do. But it's like at that point, what's interesting, let's go back to that systems mindset that we were talking about at the beginning of the call. What you have is sourcing, like the prep work, right? Getting it listed, and then sales on the back end. Right. What's great is you basically took the sales process and gave it to Aura and said, this is kind of how I do it, and then just let it go. Right. So now you're freeing up more time from managing your listings, your pricing, and all that stuff, making sure you're competitive, and you're transitioning that time back over into sourcing, which is really where you're making money, right? So that's what we do. We take a different approach here, right? For us, it's not about having tens upon or hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of users. Like that sounds awesome, but for us, it's like there's a level of community here that we're building, and we like to be accessible. You know, we jump into Zoom calls with users all the time where they're like, hey, I'm just having trouble understanding something, or there's a unique situation. So we love to help out. And for us, you know, it's a 14-day ungated trial, meaning we don't require a credit card upfront, which means you can jump in to Aura for 14 days, not give us any way to charge you money, make more money to cover the cost of it, and then pay us, but you didn't come out of pocket. Cool. Right? Like that's pretty cool. We try to make it super frictionless. And for your audience, obviously we have it's a 15% discount for the first 3 months after that 14-day trial. You'll still get that as well. And, you know, we don't limit support during that period. You know, everybody jump in and be like, hey, Finn, I need help, man. we'll help you out for sure. So yeah, we try to make it super simple, right? We're trying to make something that's very complex, super friendly, and very effective for the business.
Yes. Awesome. And yes, you have given me a coupon that is ESPPK. That's a 15% discount on the first 3 months. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I will actually submit that coupon along with the description of this video when it goes out. There is a couple of more things while you were telling me about Aura. First of all, the name sounds really cool. I mean, I was actually, my brain was thinking, hey, I mean, like hey Siri, if I could use it. Hey Aura, can you put that listing into account or something? I mean, how cool that would be when you were talking about workflows and automation.
So what's funny is, so I'm a huge Siri shortcuts automation guy. So actually on my phone, these, like my whole home screen are Siri shortcuts, right?
Awesome.
So I wanted something like that for users, and users seem to want something, you know, similar as well, where, just tell Aura how you want it done. Exactly. And let Aura deal, you know, for us, when we were kind of thinking through names, we're like, oh, it's like having an aura around you that's like protecting your sales, right? Because we're missing out on so many, right? And so it's like, oh, cool. It's this thing that you can create and unleash on your Amazon business that does great things for you while you're sleeping. Like that's fantastic. And, you know, when you look at what we charge, we're $97 a month. Obviously you guys get the 15% discount for that first 3 months. If you think about how many times we're repricing your inventory and the increase in sales, it's like, that's so cheap. Like, it's insanely cheap. And that's what I want. You know, we support sellers up to 50,000 actively repricing SKUs per month. Not like you have 50,000, you literally want to reprice 50,000. Wow. And we don't charge more for that. So we have sellers that, you know, are getting started and they have 5 to 10 grand a month in sales. And we help them scale and double and triple and all that good stuff. We also have sellers that do 2 to 3 million a month on the platform, and they pay us the same dollar amount. It's insane. So we get cheaper over time, which is kind of nice.
Yes, that's huge. There is one issue that it's another challenge, actually, you can say, the business challenge, especially, and when it comes to repricing. When we go into the price war, especially, it's for Amazon, not specifically to Aura. we some people start this price war and then we race to the bottom. Nobody makes money. And
Yeah.
there is another situation when Amazon turns up on your listing and then takes the
Yeah.
buy box like 99% of the time. So what do you suggest in such cases? There are two situations I have put in front of you.
Yeah. So I'll take the easy one first. Amazon, like you're just not going to win. I mean, sometimes you can, sometimes you won't. It depends on the listing, right? For me, having been a seller, I'm like, I'm just not going to compete with Amazon. Like it's their house, right? They're going to set the rules. If they want to win, they're going to win. Exactly. So that's the easy one. For repricing wars and stuff like that, let's definitely dive into this one. A lot of people think that's a bad thing. I heavily disagree. Okay. Because we're missing one caveat here. So the strategy we tend to recommend is called the oscillation strategy. An oscillation is just a wave. It goes up and down, right? Here's what's interesting. How do you increase sales on Amazon? Get in the buy box. Okay. How do you get in the buy box? You have a better price. What's a better price? A lower price. Yes. Okay, so we're going to approach this from an economics perspective. You want to increase the volume of your sales. We just explained exactly how to do that. That's the only way outside of like listing optimization and stuff. And yeah, you should still do those things, but let's just talk repricing right now. Okay. That doesn't sound too exciting, right? Because yeah, you made more revenue, but you didn't make more money. Now, right. Profit wise. Yes. So what do we do? Okay. What we can do is we can say, once your price reaches your minimum price, go to your maximum price. It doesn't seem like an impactful thing, but what just happened is we increased the average net profit per unit. So here's what's interesting, because we tested a lot on this, right? Because when we got started, we're like, what truly makes sense based on the data, not what other sellers are telling us, the data. We found that a lot of, again, we're going to think about this from an economics perspective real quick. I love having sellers jump in and be like, hey, I want you to make me more money per unit and sell more units. Right. No, doesn't work with economics. Like not on Amazon, I'm sorry. But what can we do? Can we increase the volume of sales you're getting while maintaining the same average net profit per unit? Yeah, we can. And that's pretty great. That's actually a really good thing, right? So for OA, RA listings where you have 3 units, I literally say it doesn't matter. Right. If you got 1 unit, guys, if you can sell it in the next hour for 20 cents less, do it. Like you're still making money. Right? We get, as Amazon sellers, we get so fixated on the net profit per unit and making it as high as possible. You don't need to do that. This is a volume game, right? We want to have a healthy average. Some are going to be low, some high, some in the middle. So for wholesale, where you have, let's say 100 units in stock, you need to be able to do this because here's the thing. Other sellers are doing it. It's like steroids in sports. The moment it becomes legal, you're going to have a lot of people be like, I disagree on principle. My philosophy is against it. I'm not going to do it. That's fine. But 10% start to do it. And guess what? Your philosophy all of a sudden is either do it or get out. Shake them. You can't win now. Yes. It becomes a competitive advantage. But here's what's so cool. You can raise the average price with this strategy. So we had 2 sellers. One was an Aura seller. One was just somebody else, a competitor. And they're repricing super fast, like super aggressive. So I was like, well, what can we do here? They were starting to push the price down a little too hard. So what we did was every time it got close to the minimum price, we're dragging them down, right? We would raise the price. They would follow us back up. Agreed. So I was like, okay, here's what we can do. Let's say we're at $10. The minimum's $9. We're going down to 2 pennies every single time, right? So the moment we start going down, I raise their max price from 10 to 11. So we jump to 11, they go to 10.99. Interesting. So, and then I raise the minimum from 9 to 10, right? So I'm shifting up. And what's great is we raise the actual buy box price by $5. Yes. Right. It's like, and we're getting the same volume because we're repricing, and then we just let it sit there and do its thing. Yes. So there's some opportunity there. I used to do this as a wholesale seller manually. I would push the price down when a new seller got on it and let it sit there. And then I'd jack it back up and let them sit there because they weren't repricing. They would sell out and be like, oh, this idiot just tanked the listing. No, I didn't. I tanked your listing. Of course. And guess what? You're not going to restock because you're like, oh, it's ruined now. There's no profitability. I'm like, yeah, there is. You just didn't see it. Right. So you have to really, when you see people repricing below by a penny, a lot of newer sellers go, oh, this guy's an idiot. They don't know business. No. You're missing something. Don't think that person's an idiot. Think, what do they know that I don't? Because they might be taking you for a ride. And we see this all the time. We have some sellers jump in and they're very hesitant because they've been told, hey, repricing below by a penny is terrible, blah, blah, blah. You're a terrible human being. That's all wrong. So I'll be like, hey, give me a week. Let me change your strategy. Just give me a week and we'll see what it does for your business. If you hate it, you can change it back. 3 days in, they're like, leave it. It's perfect. Why? They made an extra 30% in sales.
Wow.
You're in business to make, and again, we didn't tank the price. They maintained an average net profit per unit. Heck, even if it went down, 50 cents per SKU, who cares? You still made more money in total in the same period of time.
Agree.
That's a good thing, right? So there's a lot of, again, counterintuitive things, right? Repricing is very counterintuitive because what we're told in a lot of Amazon communities is, we should share the buy box and all this stuff. No, you're here to compete. You run a business, right? And all it takes is for one seller on a listing to reprice. You better be repricing now.
Of course. So
yeah.
I used to do this strategy, this, what you call it?
The oscillation? Yeah.
Oscillation, yes. But of course, at that time, it was supposed to be manual. So inform.co would take your upper price to the bottom.
Yeah.
And it would stop. Okay. So it would tell you, hey, I'm done. I have no room to go down. So what we would do is look at the sales and then we would raise the price back to the maximum one, whatever we want to set it up. So that we do this strategy with Amazon itself too.
Oh, so, nice. Okay.
Yes, because Amazon is also using its own repricer.
Yeah.
Most of the time. It will give you a hard time. And with Amazon, the thing is, Amazon always has more room to go down compared to any seller, Yeah.
Yep.
So what we would do, okay, when we are done going to the bottom, we would go back up. Amazon looks at you, okay, now this guy has gone up. Amazon still come up as well. Not immediately. That's another thing, but it would. It raises slowly sometimes it jacks up immediately, but it does. So in that case, we just continue to play with Amazon. Like you keep repricing, you spend the buy box a little bit. This helps you when Amazon comes with $9.99 plus a stock and you are like sitting with 50 units and you would say, oh shit, what can we do with 50 units? Now, this is the time to use this exact strategy. Now, this is great to know that Aura is already doing it. I mean, I didn't know
it'll do the whole thing for you automatically. So there's two ways that Aura will raise your price, right? That oscillation, once you hit your minimum, we take you to your maximum price. That's one way. The other way is the maintenance section. So within our strategy builder, we have different sections. The maintenance section is like a sub strategy. It says, when I'm in the buy box, do you want me to do anything special? And what you can say is, if I'm in the buy box, but I'm the lowest seller, raise my price to be 1 penny beneath the next lowest FBA seller. Why would you do that? Well, because the tactic I was just talking about, where I used to push sellers down, raise my price, and then they would sit there. You don't want that to happen, right? Just being in the buy box is not necessarily a good thing. Yes. So for us, again, we've been sellers. So we're like, hey, more sales sounds great. What's your profitability, right? We care about how much money did you take home net. So we're looking at, if you're in the buy box, but the next lowest FBA seller jumps from 20 where you're at to 25, we're going to take you to 24.99, right? We don't want to give up the buy box, but we want you to make more money per unit where you can. Yeah. So what's cool about the example you gave with Amazon, you mentioned that they would stay there just a little bit longer. They didn't immediately jump. What Aura would do in that situation, it would actually just stay at your max price until they came back above your min.
Agreed.
And then would just start the process all over again.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what we have to do. Yes. I think it's very helpful. And I think we must start using Aura on all our accounts. First of all, tell me this, how many accounts in one Aura account, how many Amazon seller accounts can be connected in a single Aura account? What's the limit?
Yeah, so we don't technically have a limit there. The only downside is once you start getting to having like tons of SKUs, I mean, like 4 to 5 marketplaces in there, it's going to get a little slower for you to use. It's just a client-based thing because it wasn't really built for that reason. Like we didn't put a cap on it because we didn't think people would add like, 8+ storefronts on there. And then we had an agency come in and be like, we just added 20. We're like, okay, well, technically you can do that, but it's going to be really slow.
Wow.
So for us, there's a workaround there. If you're like, hey, I've got 20 storefronts that I manage, we'll have to split them up into different accounts. But we're happy to work with people that are like, hey, I really manage like 20+ storefronts. What do we do? We'll work with you there. We totally get it. Even if you're over the 50,000 SKU limit, that's for the Aura account at the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
Just let us know. I mean, we have people that reprice 300,000 SKUs a month.
Awesome. So,
and we'll work with you.
Of course, we have some different kind of sellers or here as well. So you may have heard about service providers agency.
Yeah.
So they create a team in this country, in Pakistan. We do, as I said, we have like 10+ offices. We call them success rooms, actually.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. That means it's a co-working space for the students as well, for the sellers, and these agency leaders or owners to use that space. Of course, they have to pay for it, and it's more like an incubation center. So they have a mentor or coach right there in front of them, sitting next to them. And these people can actually work on their accounts, their own accounts, or they can also, because they are agency, they tend to look for clients either from Pakistan or outside Pakistan, and they provide them services to build their businesses for them, more like automation services.
Sure.
So these clients, probably from the US, from UK, they just give them the child access to their Amazon account, their company details, and probably some virtual cards. So these agency owners will actually start working on their accounts. So the reason I ask you about this multiple Amazon stores thing is because they also would need, I mean, we know this for a fact that we don't want to spend a lot of money.
Right.
So if you were to tell me that, okay, Aura can be used on one account, single account or store, I would say, okay, I have 35 Amazon sellers in my seller board account that I have to spend like 1 hour every day to just check their reports, daily sales. I don't do it every day, but that's how I have to do. So I would be spending like $3,500 a month with you guys to have repricing on my account. I know for you it sounds very exciting, but
but don't worry, we wouldn't charge you that much.
I know, of course. But what I'm trying to say is you may think about it and you may come up with some strategies, or I mean the pricing model for the people like the agency owners. If they have like 5 accounts or 10 accounts, you can offer them some customized package. So with this platform, I'm sure there are a lot of people. And with this strategy, especially that oscillation rule you told me, I think that's a must-have at this point of time for every Amazon sellers who is competing on a listing that is piggybacking.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yes, either it's RA, OA, or wholesale. I mean, besides private label, all of the business models, they always mess up with different competitors. So I think it's sort of
yeah.
So yeah, I think
for sure.
that would be helpful. And there was one last thing. I'm sorry, I took a lot of your time.
Oh, you're good. I like geeking out with this kind of stuff. So it's all good. I like talking about this stuff.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah. So we discussed most of the parts. So you told me about Vendrive. Are you still keeping it? What's the deal with Vendrive?
Yeah, so Vendrive CRM was the first tool that we built. It used to be Vendrive, now it's vendrivecrm.com. That was the first software we kind of built. That's where we learned a lot about running a software business and really a product, because we did everything wrong. We had no idea what we were doing. We learned a lot. It was awesome. It's still there. We're not actively supporting it. Like, we check support tickets once a day in case anything is wrong, but we're not actively like adding new features or anything like that.
Okay.
The CRM was really built for, my co-founder and I were running wholesale Amazon businesses before we started the software thing. And, we realized we had built these like systems and processes independent of each other, but they ended up being the exact same. And we're like, oh, it'd be cool if there was a software that basically made this like prettier and easier to do and like made it more like structured. And my co-founder is actually technical. He's a full stack engineer. So he's like, hey, I built it. And we're like, cool. Like, let's see if we can sell it. So did that for a while. It still exists. We still have, new people join every single day. It's just a very low friction thing. There's not a ton of bells and whistles. You can definitely get away with using Trello or Google Sheets if you want, but if you want something that's got a nice visual layer to it, it's very easy to jump in and just get to it.
Yes.
Vendrive CRM is fantastic. We charge $27 a month for it. It's super cheap. So yeah, it's something, kind of there. We have users that's been paying us for like 4 years that keep using it. It's awesome. But we're not actively adding new features to that at the moment.
Right. So we used to use HubSpot for the same purpose.
Yep.
And we would customize and configure it according to our requirements. And we have some training videos for that as well. But later on, we also created a different portal for our specific students, especially the paid students. So they can, because in our case, students do want the trainers or the coach to review their products before they go live with them. So
Sure,
it
totally
just gives them a, sort of satisfaction, or maybe you can say trust on the product, even though they didn't go through it, but it's just, so that portal has this specific functionality. Along with that, it also has this CRM kind of thing. Of course, not as good as Vendrive, but it just does the job. So yeah, that's
Luckily with Vendrive CRM, we have it like connected to your MWS account, right? So we can pull in, like you put in the ASIN, we'll pull in like the product image, we'll pull in like the BSR, all that stuff. So it kind of helps with the analysis. As you're going through different things, you have a note section. It's a basic CRM, but it's more tailored for Amazon wholesale sellers, where if you want to be able to see, what products do I have listed to certain brands, which ones have I contacted, non-contacted. Basically, it was designed to just help streamline a specific process, which was sourcing the way we kind of do it.
Yes, I used its trial some time ago, as I said.
Nice.
I really liked it. Yeah, I mean, it does a job, and tailored, as you said, it's tailored for Amazon sellers. And I mean, it helps you with the follow-ups with the suppliers and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty cool. Our portal doesn't do that. Yeah, so it's very basic. So Dillon, I was enjoying talking to you. I mean, I was learning a lot of stuff as well. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your discussing everything with very open mind. And I mean, I enjoyed. And I'm sure we can connect back. I will, and thank you for this 15% coupon of Go Aura.
Sure.
I mean, I'm coming to you with a few stores in the beginning to set them up. I will assign a person in my team member. It was actually a lead member. He looks at these accounts. So I will be handing over to him about this, how the sign up process with Aura, and definitely I'll inform you via email. So it's just, you can keep an eye on it if you want. I mean,
of course. Yeah.
So thank you so much. If you have any questions or concerns for me, I would be happy to answer. Let me know, and then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, Ollie, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's nice to be able to geek out and have fun with it, right? So no, I appreciate you having me on and letting me, nerd out, go to different rabbit holes. That's always appreciated. Yeah, I mean, we're happy to help out on the repricing front. If you want to schedule like a in-depth, like here's how we build strategies, here's a more in-depth guide on like how we approach, the oscillation strategy or workflows or anything like that, just let me know. We're always happy to provide value in any way we can. So if your students are asking tons of questions, like we're happy to jump in, schedule a webinar and answer questions. You know, we're not super salesy if you can't already tell. We just like to provide value and content. So yeah, happy to help wherever we can, but I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I was saying my notes document is now 2 pages plus. So
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I use drafts on my phone and on my Mac because it syncs everything up. So like when you just jump into the app, it just starts you on a blank page and you just start taking notes. It's awesome. There's like some automation and stuff you can do with it, but yeah, I love taking notes.
I use Evernote. So that is also syncing everywhere on all the devices, my Mac, my iPhone.
Nice. Yeah, I love it.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, Ali, man, I appreciate you again. I'll get those sent over to you, but yeah, happy to create any more training videos. I'll send you stuff on strategy, on workflows. Yeah, it'll be fun, man. I think your audience will be very like excited to see the UI and see like how it works and what it can do for their businesses.
I'm sure they will love it. Right now, this situation I'm working is just empowering more people, because I see a lot of people struggling in my country in making their kitchen income. They can't even. There's a lot of problems as well. I mean, I'm sure US has a lot of bigger problems too. I mean, we as an individual, we can do our small part, and a few thousand people, if we can change their lives, I think the purpose will be fulfilled for our lives.
Oh yeah, I mean, because what's the second order effect of that, right? 1,000 turns to 5, turns to 10, right?
That's what happens.
That gets exciting for me for sure.
Exactly, that's what happens. So
awesome. Yep.
Thank you so much once again, Dillon. It was great speaking to you today, and I'll look forward to working with you guys and see how we can collaborate further on this. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.